So during this training tutorial or training video on how to modify the documents for Inspection Express, I'm going to go through the disclosure statement. Now, to explain, there are a couple of times that this needs to be used. So the first time is when you've got a brand new management, and that's I'm going to create a separate document which would be the disclosure statement and the minimum standards together. So that's when you've got a brand new management and you're just picking it up, and that would be a disclosure statement, minimum standards, new business. When you've got an existing landlord, so you only need the minimum standards really once, unless things change. So you don't need to be sending out the new business document, and it's really quite big. So what I've done is I've also separated the minimum standards as one separate document, and also the disclosure statement as another document. So if you've got an ongoing management and you need to send out just the disclosure statement, so that might be when you've got a notice to vacate or when you have a lease renewal, this is the document you're going to use. So this is for, and I've got it over here, so the name that I'm using is Residential Rental Provider Disclosure Statement to the renter applicant, to the rental applicant or renter. So it really covers both. It's for the new tenancy and also for the lease renewal. So as per the normal, I'm not going to go through the front page because it's the same always. So just make sure you're using this that heading, and your ABN, that should be fine. Your logo should be already in here because you're using other documents as well. So I've got the information in there. Okay, so let's just go to the first page. Now, at the moment on this one, the first page is simply go straight into disclosures. Now this is standard off the Inspection Express list. And we have made, I'm copying this from another client, we have made a number of smaller changes, but I'm now wanting to go back through. I have a PDF document which I use, and at the front, and what I find is a lot of rental providers, they don't really fill this in correctly, so therefore it creates animosity when they're receiving this, but when the agent's receiving this back. So what I've tried to do is make it really educational along the way. So the very first page is this one. So this is the explanation, and that would go into a first page after the front page. So you've got the front page, then you've got the overview. And inside of there are a number of links. So there's a number of links that go straight back through to the Consumer Affairs. They go back through to the Tenancies Act, so 30D, which is really important. 16 Regulation 16 for the residential tenancies regulations, and also I've included in here the links straight back through to the rental minimum standards. The last page is basically saying that the agency's provided the information and that the rental providers looked at this information before making these decisions. So it's really important, and I've made this as easy as possible. It's a little bit more information than what we've got on here, but I've made it as easy as possible for the rental provider to fill in the details and to come back. So the ones that I'm seeing, so this is probably now the fourth or fifth variation of the Rental Inspection Express documents that we've used, because as we use them, we send them out, and then when they come back, it seems to be the same things that are missing. So what I've done here, so I'm just having a look at this particular document here. This one needs to be updated, and I'm just going to go through. Okay, so the first page, I've got the fines in through to there as well. I've got all the links. So make sure the links actually are formatted correctly. As per the first. As the way we've done it with all the other documents is that we've actually got bullet points inside of there, and then just make sure you've got your spacing correct. We've got the yes, no, and instead of just having comments, what I've done is I've changed that. If yes, RRP to provide details of the sales campaign timeline. So what I've tried to do is I've used the REIV document as the base. So instead of to go straight onto embedded network, I've gone with their numbering system. They've got 19 questions. I've got 27, I think, in here, 27 points. And they've got a couple of questions where it's two parts. I've broken those up into two separate ones, particularly around the smoke detector, gas, electric, and pools. They've got those as 4 but 2 parts each. I've actually got them in as 8 questions inside of here. You'll see that in a second. Okay, so let's just come through to notice intention to sell. So here it is here. The text is there for you. Just need to copy that. So I've added a little bit of a change inside of there, which is basically there is a proposal to sell the rental premises, and I/we have engaged an agent to sell. Now what I've done is I've actually made some of these bold, so just put them in to highlight them inside of there, so make them bold in there so it really stands out that this is what we're talking about. The other thing that I've got here is where you've got the heading, I'm numbering them, so my suggestion is put a number in there, and instead of it just says intention to sell, here's the heading there, owner's short to mid-term plans to sell the property. So this is what what I've tried to do is I've tried to use the headings to explain what the information is that we need from the owner. Okay, so instead of just intention to sell, so I've now gone into the short and medium term. So here what I've done is I've actually put in there, at the time of completing this form, or have plans to list the rental property for sale in the next 3 months. So this is what's a bit different to what we've just got inside of here. So my suggestion is you copy those 3 lines, pop them into here, create it as a bullet point, change that to number 1, move this up to here, get rid of the disclosures where it says disclosures there, put that in, and this is the heading, residential rental provider, RRP, property disclosure statement. So that's really what we're putting across there, and moving this one up, and yes, no is fine, and I'll just move myself there. Instead of comments, if yes, RRP to provide details of the sales campaign timeline. So again, we've talked about what it is we're looking for. If it's a yes, then they need to pop their information in through to there. Okay, then the next one is, I think it's on the next one, mortgagee. So it's down there, and again I'm just using the REIV as the guide that we've come from. So current status of the mortgage payments in relationship with the bank. Now the reasons why I've actually changed that heading and make that number 2, move that up, the reasons why I've written it like that is because a lot of people are ticking yes when I see these when I'm doing audits. They're ticking yes because they think, yes, I have a mortgage, not realising that the question's around mortgagee. And effectively, so what I've got here, a mortgagee / bank is taking action to recover possession. See, it's a little bit different to here, of the rented premises, and has commenced a proceeding to enforce a mortgage over the rented premises, which may impact the rental agreement. So yes, no, and then if yes, RRP to explain potential impact to the renter. So I've got that. That's the actual. That's it there. But when you're doing it, you're just going to not worry about that. I'm just using it so you can see where it sits and what it should look like inside of into the box. And again, using a bullet point. What I've done here is I've made that bold as well, and you've got your heading. Okay. The owner's right to let the premises. Next one here. Are you the owner of the property? And if you are not, please advise specifics. So don't worry about that. That's what's sitting here. So are you the registered owner of the rented premises as named on the property title? Now again, this is really important because we want to make sure that's actually on the title. If the answer is no, we do have the right to let the premises. If the answer is no, RRP to explain the authority right to let the premises. So that's there. So again, we're getting a little bit more information inside of here than what we would have. So we go to point 4, and now we're at the embedded network. Okay. All right. So instead of just embedded electricity, and this is really hard to read. So what we want to do is try and bullet point this bit of space inside of there. I'm okay with the document being bigger as long as we can get more space and more information inside of there. Is the rented premises supplied with electricity from an embedded electricity network? That's it there. And then I don't know if you can use italics. You may be able to inside the boxes, but if not, if you can, then that's great. That goes in underneath. And then if the electricity is supplied via embedded network, please provide, embedded network, disconnection fees. If there are connection and disconnection fees associated with the embedded network service, then these must be disclosed to the renter as part of the disclosure statement. Okay, so what we get is we usually get a tick yes and then nothing else. So then what happens is the agent has to go and follow up all this other information. See here, it says here, please provide the trading name, ABN. No one does that, and they're not filling that in there. So here's my suggestion. If yes, we provide the following information about the operator. So create that so they can actually fill that in down here. I'm unsure how that's done, but I'm just trying to give you the feedback and the suggestion that that's what we should be doing. So they need to be able to, here's the trading name of the provider, they need to be able to fill that in. Here's the ABN, they need to be able to fill that in. So just have a look at the formatting of behind the scenes of Inspection Express and how you go about setting that up. But what you want to be able to get back in this document, because if we're just saying ticking yes, but we're not providing the gas, electric, ABN, tariffs and lots of things, then the document's non-compliant. So what I've tried to do is I've spent a lot of time, an enormous amount of time on this one, because the disclosure statements that I see back, I'm going to suggest 75% of the ones that I see that come back from an owner are non-compliant. So they've not been filled in correctly, and a lot of it has to do with the way the document's written. So what we're doing now is I'm trying to make this really, really easy for the agent to send it out and get that information back. So hopefully that's what happens. And if not, then we'll change it again. But the way it's currently working is not ideal. Okay, so the next one is gas. So I've got through to here. So 5, so that would be number 5, embedded gas network. And information about the service provider and fees is required inside of there. So that would be that one. Exactly the same thing. And next one is Brent. Now what I've done here, location of a homicide. So let's just go back to that one. That's where I got it from. Location of a homicide. So here's the question. Are the premises or common property known to have been the location of a homicide in the last 5 years? Yes or no. And so what I've done is I've actually, so it's point 6, I've actually put this down as rental premises history. And remember the renter's going to get this. So what's happening is the rental provider will fill this in, the renter gets it. So what we're doing is there's certain parts about the safety, there's certain parts around the building, there's certain parts around the owners corporation rules, and then there's quite a bit in here around the history of the premises and or the tenancies. So this is why I've called this rental premises history, location of a homicide in the last 5 years. I didn't want to just go in there and write homicide. I just didn't think that that was right. So, and again, I'm trying to make the document easier to read. And in this one, it just says yes or no. What we need to be doing is yes, no, or don't know. So here there's 3 options, yes, no, or don't know. And it'll be, so we've got the options, and then underneath there, if the answer is yes, the RRP is required to provide further details to the renter. That's what gets put into there. Okay, so that's a homicide. Next one, I've tried to make this as easy as possible to try and fill in. So let's just go to minimum standards. Okay, so here's the minimum standards at the moment, and as I said, most of the documents that I'm seeing come back are non-compliant. So I've changed this so that we can get this to a stage where it is the owner's really putting as much information as possible, and we can then use this appropriately. Okay, so rental premises complies with all 14 rental minimum standards. At the moment, do the premises comply with the rental minimum standards? People are just ticking yes and then moving on. That's it. So then what I've done is I've gone, if the property doesn't comply with the 14 standards, it's deemed to be non-compliant and will impact the ability to enter into a rental agreement with the renter, applicant or renter. Rental minimum standards came into effect 29 March. Of March, and there. Requiring all rental premises to comply with the with minimum requirements relating to an amenity, safety and privacy. Rental providers have a duty to ensure their property meets these standards prior to being offered to a renter or at all times throughout the tenancy. Because we're going to use this document for new lets and also for lease renewals, information on the specific requirements of the rental standards can be found on the Consumer Affairs website or Residential Tenancies Regulations Schedule 4, which is here. That's the link. Prior to answering this question, you may want to read the standards which all properties must comply with to be offered to the rental market. Now, inside of here, what I'm suggesting, I've just copied this yes, no. Instead of having it yes, no this way, what I'm suggesting is you've got the 14 standards. So we've got locks, yes, no. Vermin-proof bins, yes, no. Toilets, yes, no. Bathroom facilities, yes, no. And all the way down. So then it says, provide an explanation for any standard that does not comply. So what we're looking for, instead of the owner just going tick yes, and we know that the property doesn't comply, which means we've got to go back and forward. What we're doing is saying to the owner is that, does the property comply to these 14 standards? That's what we're looking for, not one tick. So if it complies to all 14, then we're off and running. But at the moment, all the ones that I'm seeing are not compliant. Now this particular link, cancel out of that. This particular link, I've changed that one. I'm not using that one anymore. I'm using the schedule. So that was actually back to Consumer Affairs. What I'm doing now is going straight back to the Residential Tenancies Regulations, Schedule 4 inside of there. This should help. By preparing it this way, it should help us get a lot more information. So mold, damp. Okay, so number 8, and I've tried to, as I said, I've tried to use the same framework that the RRP are using. So this is what I've put in. So frameworks of flow. Rent premises history, mold, damp, or building structural soundness. And again, here we go. We have received. So this is really now we're starting to get it so that it is actually a proper disclosure rather than a just yes, no. We have received a repair notice in the last 3 years relating to mould or damp in the premises caused by or related to the building structure. Yes or no. If the answer is yes, RRP is to provide further details to the renter inside of there. So again, you can see we're getting a lot more information. So number 9. Okay, so now we're going to smoke alarm. So here's the inspection and there's the recommendation. So we've got 1, 2, 1, 2 and so forth. Okay, so has the smoke alarm, actually don't worry about that. Most recent smoke alarm compliance and safety inspection is going to be there. Item 9, the rental provider is required. And so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 points that'll be sitting inside of there with bullet points and ideally spacing. Rental provider is required to ensure that prior to the renter taking possession of the property, that they have a written smoke alarm compliance and safety report stating that the property is compliant from an inspection not more than 12 months old. The renter has the right to request a copy of the compliance service report at any time during their tenancy, and the rental provider has up to 7 days to provide it. The most recent inspection date and the compliance status is required to be noted in the ingoing condition report provided to the renter prior to taking possession of the property. Has the smoke alarm safety inspection been completed within the last 12 months by a suitably qualified contractor, yes or no? So that's what you've got inside of there. And what we don't have on this one, and I'm just referring back to my document, so the document that I was using, which was a PDF, is that inside of here, we're actually required to put the dates. So this particular document here isn't satisfactory, so we need to make sure that we've got the dates inside of here now. And again, it's all learning. We're just creating these documents as we keep going. So so what I've done is I've put in here the date of the most recent smoke detector inspection is, and that needs to be manual. So they need to be able to type that in. And the company that conducted the smoke detector inspection is, and they need to be able to type that in. And then underneath here, we've got outstanding recommendations from the smoke alarm compliance and safety inspection. So it's there. So And again, I'm trying to write this with the heading, so outstanding recommendations instead of just recommendations. So these are outstanding. Are there any outstanding recommendations for work to be completed at the premises from the smoke alarm safety check? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, the RRP is to provide details. And again, comments. I don't think I could probably count on one hand the number of files that I've seen that have come back that have got something written in the comments. So at least here, if we've got them here, we're saying if it's yes, they're required to put the information in there. Exactly the same thing for gas and carbon monoxide. So it's exactly the same thing. Gas safety inside of there. Exactly the same thing for electrical. So we've got the electrical back here in there. And then we've got pools. And where we've got pool. What I've got, most recent pool and spa barrier compliance and safety inspection. And then if applicable to this property inside of there only. It's exactly the same format. So once you get the format right for one, it's duplicating them for all four. Heritage listing. Here we go, heritage register. I'll just move myself here. Okay, so heritage listing, heritage overlay, heritage register is the heading that I've put through to there. And the rented premises is considered a registered place. So that one actually has the no over there. Just be careful of that formatting as well. If you do find that spacing puts you onto different pages, try and make it as easy as possible. Heritage place meaning Section 3 of the Heritage Act. I've checked that today. And that will actually be the definition of registered place. The answer to, if the answer is yes, RRP provide further details inside of there. And now we've got the next one, contamination due to trafficking or cultivation of drug of dependence in the last 5 years. Drug contamination. So again, I've come back, instead of just putting that, I've try to make it a little bit easier and more palatable when an owner's reading this. The rent premise is known to be contaminated because of this. Yes, no, or don't know in this one. So you got yes, no, and don't know. If the answer is yes, then if the answer is yes, RRP provide further details to the renter. Next one, asbestos. There. The rented premises is known to have friable or non-friable asbestos based on an inspection and written report by a suitably qualified person. Are the premises known to have friable and non-friable asbestos based on the inspection by a suitably... Yeah, so it's actually inspection and report, because you might have somebody go and have a look, but you need to have a report back to say this is what it is. So that's why I've written that in there. So don't be copying this. Yes, no, don't know. And again, if the answer is yes, RRP to provide further details. Building planning. Okay, are the premises known to be affected by a building or planning? Okay, so that's there. And we've got yes, no. What I've put in, rental premises, I didn't put history because it's just rental premises. The rental premises is to be the rented premises is to be affected by a building or planning application that has been lodged with the relevant authority. Yes, no, I don't know. Affected is not limited to the rented premises. It may be a building or planning application permit for a neighbouring building in close proximity to the rented premises. To the rented premises there. So that's why I've put that there, and I've put yes, no, don't know in there, because that's really important that we Yep. So in that regard, it's not necessarily just the building itself. It might be, so for example, you've got an apartment block. It might be another apartment block directly opposite. Now, if a person's got a view, and then all of a sudden a building is going to go up across the road from them, then that's going to impact them, particularly with cranes and so forth. That's going to impact them with their decision to rent the property. The next one, building defects inside of there. So that's just all as one at the moment. It is all as one. That's fine. But what I've done is I've taken this if yes out and put that underneath there. That's where it should be, not there. And there. And I've then added this section underneath here. Okay, which is not in this one. So this one's a little bit tricky, but we need to try and figure this through. Okay, so basically, if there's a building defect or a safety concern or something like that, then what we want to do is we want to get a copy of that. So, for example, if there was a surveyor's report that the foundation of an apartment block was not right and they were doing some work and it had scaffolding underneath to hold the car park up, you'd want to know and you want to get a copy of that report. So what we've basically done is inside of here, so 21 is there an actual issue? And then over here, this point is only applicable if the answer to point 21 is yes. Now, if you're not going to number them, then you've got to make sure you fix these things up, because a couple of times I've referred back to the numbers. And then I've got in here an example of what the concerns might be, and then have we attached it. If it's not applicable, then it would be ticked not applicable. It's either yes or no. And then the answer, if the answer is no, it's not attached. If the answer is no, not attached, RRP is required to provide further details to the renter. So that's that one. So there's an expanded point in through to there. Domestic building works inside of there. There is. So instead of it being there is there, it's there is. So it's more making the statement. There is one. Rental premises, domestic building works disputes in there. Straightforward, yes, no. Current owners corp. That's not there. Under part 10. Oh, here we go. OC dispute. So I didn't even see it. OC dispute. Is there a current dispute? So we've got 3 points in there now. And if there's no owners corp, then just select. It'll be not applicable. So there'll be 3 points down there. If it's yes, RRP required to put further information. The next one is I've expanded this one. The rental premises are part of an OC. That doesn't have that. No, doesn't have it. So rental premises part of an OC. Building this. No, it's not on this one. Okay, I just picked that up. Didn't know. Okay, so the rental premises is part of an owner's corporation. Yes or no? Okay, that's 24. 25. There are rules that needs to be inside of here, only applicable if the point 24 was yes. Rules, we have attached a copy of the owner's corporation rules, either not applicable, yes, attached, no, not provided. And then specific move in, move out rules. So 24, 25, 26, again, they're not on this one, but they need to be added into there as well. Last one. This is the residential rental provider's disclosure. Now, if I just come to the back end here, it's not written in there. No. That's okay. This document that I'm using as an example is one where it's combined. So it'll be one for a new management. It's got the minimum standards and the disclosure. But as I said, for the purposes of this one, for your existing owners, if you've got 200 properties, you want to get 200 of these out and make sure you've got them on, rental minimum standards you do, but you want to make sure you've got these for all of your lease renewals and when you've got notice to vacate and any changes to tenancy. Okay, newly created lease is what I mean, rental agreement. I'm getting there. Residential rental providers disclosure. We have checked all the questions to ensure that they have been answered to the best of my knowledge, and that all answers are correct. Okay. We acknowledge that the agency has provided the links to the current legislation and consumer affairs resources, and that we have used this information to help prepare the responses. This is really important. I've put that in there. It's not on the REIV one. It wasn't on my original one, but I've put it in there now because I want to make sure that they're referring back to the links. And if they're going to sign this and they haven't looked at the links, then more fool them. We acknowledge that there are now significant fines and penalties applicable for providing a renter a property that does not comply with the rental minimum standards, comply with the safety inspection requirements, and for false or misleading information within a disclosure statement. That's a ripper because I've just written that one. New rentals, we understand that this document will be provided to the applicant prior to being offered to a rental agreement for signing, and that the answers may impact their decision to proceed. Rental renewals, we understand that this document will be provided to an existing renter prior to being offered a renewal agreement for signing, and that the answers may impact their decision to proceed. Yes, no, and then they get their signature. So that's the document for the disclosure. That'll be, if we can get this in place, that will be an absolute ripping disclosure, and really cover the agency, cover the owner, and really help the renter out. And again, I'd love to see if anyone was ever to, like a consumer affairs, come in and dispute, are we getting the right information? Based on this is more than we need, and really quite in depth, and we're able to get a lot more information and then help when we're complying, but also help the renter make a decision. So I hope this helps and the document looks good. Feel free to let me have a look at it and cast my eye over it. Cheers.